Sunday afternoon, and we are on our way to the local car event. The car event will be small, however we will have a nice piece of cars in there. We will find out. As you can see, there are already some Polish cars standing and inviting us to come inside. So let's check it out. We are getting closer to the first car. This is the Fiat 126P. This is the car that was really important for Polish people. The same story as for Germans in terms of Volkswagen Beetle. The same as for British people Mini. This was the car that gives a chance for an automobile for the Polish people. So yeah, that's a great sentiment for a lot of people. This was the first car for a lot of Polish people. This was a car when people learned to drive, and right now it is a great piece of history. Please check it out, the yellow plate. In Poland they are reserved for classic car and for a historical car. We've got another piece of example in here. This was a big deal. A car for a government back in the 70s, and a dream car for a lot of families. So in the very beginning, I just want to show you the car that probably you have never seen before. This is a Polish car, and the name is Polonez. It was a lot of parts came from the Fiat 124, 125, but in general this is a Polish construction. So as you can see in here, we've got a unique version because this is a police car, and as a matter of fact not a police car but militia car. So back in the days when Poland was not a democratic country, there was no police in the country, there was militia. And it's a really nice piece of car because as you can see, you've got all the equipment that need to have. So also inside you can find the original equipment that was used in that time. It was quite common solution back in the 70s and in the beginning of 80s. So today it's also a historic car, and this was a funny thing. If you can see the rubber in there, this is how people deal with electrostatic field, and there is also a wire in there, so when the car was stopped, the car was ground and there was no electrostatic field. So long story short, that's how it looks. We've got also a little bit modern version of Polonez. This was produced still in the very beginning of 90s. So as you can see, the front is totally different, and this version is an ambulance. So a medical car. And in here we've got a car that I believe everybody knows, a legendary Volkswagen camper with an unique set of equipment like the central light. I believe it is an iconic car in every culture today, also really cherished in Poland. As you can see, the equipment is also back from the 70s, maybe even 60s, so it looks just great. And we are getting back to Fiat 125. Back in the days in the 70s, Poland has purchased a license to build that kind of car. But as you can see, there is a lot of difference between the Italian 125 and the Polish one. For example, we've got the plastic grille, and there's a lot of all the details that are different comparing to the Fiat. Unfortunately, we didn't have much money, so from the technical point of view, this car is closer to the Fiat 124, but the entire chassis looks like Fiat 125. If you will see, also the tail lights are a little bit different So this is how it looks. It's a funny thing because those cars were still produced in the very beginning of 90s. So that's kind of unique case. And here's a really unique car because this is the same Fiat 125 but in pickup version. This is the original car. This is how it was made in the factory. It's a funny thing because there is absolutely no traditions in having a pickup car in Poland. However, this car was available for the people who runs a farm or people who runs a small businesses. And Fiat 125 was also made in pickup version. In here we've got 125, however in Italian version. As you can see, the entire grille is different and a lot of... This one is from 73 and the dash. I don't know if you are seeing the dash because we've got some reflection. I will try to show it that way. Yeah. It's a little bit better. And in here we've got Fiat 124. So for all Spider fans, this is a big deal because this is a brother or sister of our Spider. So a lot of technical aspects were used. This car was so great that many countries purchased a license to build a similar one. Guys from Eastern Bloc like Lada, like Zhiguli, Turkish people purchased the license also for the Fiat. Seat has purchased the license to produce their own car based on that license. So this is how it looks. It's a friend. This car belongs to my friend, a huge enthusiast of classic automotive. Dario, warm greetings from our side. It's a funny thing because there is also a Ferrari in there, but it doesn't bring such an attention like the old cars in here. So it's a funny thing that you can own a multi-million Ferrari, but still an old Fiat will be more desirable right now than Fiat. Speaking about Fiat, as we discussed, this was a car that gives a hope for having a car in Poland back in the 70s. So a lot of nostalgia. My father owns that car as his first car. I remember when I was a little boy, I was sitting on his lap. I was, having a steering wheel in my hand, but he was pushing all the pedals, and this was my first journey with the automotive. It's a funny thing because this is the evolution of famous Fiat 500. So the engine is in the back. This is only 0.650 centimeters, so this is below 1 liter engine, 20 something brake horsepower. But it's a funny thing because it was still made here in Poland in the 90s, and one of the original version is the cabriolet, so the convertible version. As a matter of fact, this is not some tuning or some manufacturing. This is the original cabrio version that was made. I'm not so sure about that rooftop, but there was a version of that Fiat made in cabrio. They call it Bosmal. Well, and here is a real deal for a car fan who has a beer. A pocket comp, custom made here locally from stainless steel. And new models of car are also available, still coming up. So when you have a beer and you are a car enthusiastic, you need to have this. Great stuff. So I have found a nice place where we can have a full panorama. As you can see, there's a lot of car rovers from US, so you can see a nice cars, but probably you've got more of them in US. I'm sure you've got more of them in US. We will focus on the models that are quite hard to find in USA. Also motorcycles. And here we've got an Opel Manta. I don't know why, but this car always somehow reminds me about the Firebirds and the Camaros from the 70s. And this was a really big deal back in the 80s. It was a true sports car. Everybody wants to have it. So there was a big fight in Germany between Golf GTI and the Opel Manta. So this was a GSI model and just looks astonishing. When you were a young boy from the 80s or 90s, probably you had a poster in your living room with that car or with Golf GTI. And here we've got something that will perfectly fit to our Fiat. Even the paint job is and the shade is quite similar. Of course, this is an Alfa Romeo. Astonishing looking car. Great piece of rally history. And what a shape, what a line. Pure perfection. Inside, outside out. Just marvelous. Just marvelous. From the front to the back. Pure perfection. Gabryś, co myślisz o tym? Fajny? Podobny do naszego?
No nie.
And this is something that is great about Polish car shows, because on one side you can have a beautiful historical Alfa Romeo, and on the other side you can have Eastern Germany technological perfection Trabant. Straight from Eastern Germany, from Eastern Bloc, back in the 80s. As a matter of fact, it stands next to the Corvette, and those two cars has one thing in common. This one is made from plastic as well. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of Porsche. I don't know why. I know that those cars has a huge number of fans. I can appreciate the perfection from the technological point of view, but somehow they never, give me that sense of emotions like the Italian cars. But of course, this is something that is worth to show. A great piece of turbo model with great rims, so great condition. Nice interior and martini look. Those Corvettes becomes really popular. You can buy them relatively cheap, and this is usually the way of making the dream come true about the American dream. So a great car, lots of torque, lots of power, Targa version, and really reasonable purchase. Sebastian, say hello to the camera. Sebastian is a friend of ours from Germany, also a great fan of Italian cars. The one
and the Polish cars.
And Polish cars, yeah, of course, and the Polish car. The Fiat 125 Italian version is yours, right? Mm-hmm. This is your car.
Nie. Polski Fiat.
This is for Polish, but the early version with the chrome grille.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
yes.
The one, right? That's the one. And right now we are admiring the Corvette. I believe one of the coolest thing in this automobile is the digital dashboard. So it looks like a Knight Rider with David Hasselhoff, but this is the coolest thing, I believe, about this car. This is a car that I used to have. Mine was yellow, but this is also a great piece of German construction. It is a funny thing because if you ever wonder what's the difference between a socialist and democracy and the free market, so this is a kind of technology that comes from the 80s, from the Western bloc. And here we've got car that comes from Eastern Germany, also from the 80s. So the technological difference, it's, I believe, visible. And Europe was focusing on building the smallest possible car with the smallest possible engine, because the petrol consumption matters. At the same time, USA was building such kind of monsters like a Suburban. There is a huge group of US cars lovers in Poland, and this is the reason why you can find a lot of these in here. Beautiful Riviera. A beautiful Firebird and another pickup in rat rod style, a little bit more American muscles, and Ford straight from Europe, and of course a big deal with the motorcycles from all the whoa, that one is nice. Looks like a Swamp Monster motorcycle. In Poland we were producing also some of the motorcycles, and I believe this is one of the most desirable one, similar like Vespa, but this one is Osa. So a Polish construction scooter similar to Vespa. And here it is. This is the reason why I came here. So the Fiat 124 Spider, one of the first, because as you can see 1967, so the second year of the production, and it's in nice shape. It's my colleague's car. I'm really happy that there is one more here in our area. Mine is 1979, so there is a lot of differences, but this one is also really marvelous and really collectible. Military guards are here as well. So great American history, beginning of the great adventure called the Jeep. You can find it in here as well. Speaking about Polish cars, you cannot forget about Polish Warszawa. Warszawa means Warsaw, so the Polish capital. And this car was purchased from the Russian based on the license of the car called Pobieda. There's a lot of legends about the car, about the technology. So whenever you are watching a movie Polish movie from the 50s or from the 60s, probably you will see the Warszawa in there. This one is the sedan version, but there was also a kind of four-door coupe, so really nice piece of car, historical car, a lot of good memories. Yep, that's it. Okay. And in here we've got the two vans straight from Poland. They were used in all kinds of forces, like medical forces, firemen, policemen. They were using that kind of cars. Of course, the private people use it as well. Whenever you had a farm or a small business, this was the car that you had in that time. So as you can see, there is a fireman version in there and a civil version. Great piece of memories as well. This one is from 1993, but they were produced much earlier. And this particular one is from 1984. Okay, so that's it for today. We are going back. As always, we have seen a nice cars, we have met a nice people, a new friendships have started. We will see. So stay tuned, we will be right back.